In today's NBA, there are plenty of teams that seem poised to dominate on paper. If you're an optimist, you can make a case for almost any squad to exceed expectations and silence the critics. But that's not how the league works. Teams underperform all the time, and it can happen for countless reasons: injuries, poor chemistry, or just failing to meet the hype. After taking a look at some of the more underrated teams in the league, we feel it's only fair that we explore the flip side, the teams that, despite high expectations, might fall short. So let's dive in. Here are 6 highly rated teams that could fail to meet expectations in the 2024-25 NBA season. The first team on the list of overrated squads heading into the new season is the New York Knicks. After a surprising 2024 playoff run where they almost swept the Sixers and pushed the Pacers to 7 games, expectations are sky high for this team. Jalen Brunson was sensational, averaging 32.5 points per game in the postseason, solidifying himself as the team's leader. But are the Knicks as good as their recent success suggests, or are they setting themselves up for disappointment? The offseason has been full of big moves, most notably the trade for Karl Anthony Towns in exchange for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. On paper, Towns gives the Knicks a much-needed scoring option alongside Brunson, but his history in the playoffs raises concerns. Towns hasn't proven he can lead a team when it counts, and his defense remains a question mark. Can Towns be the difference maker New York hopes for, or is he another high-priced piece that falls short under pressure? The Knicks also made heavy financial commitments, including a massive $212 million deal for OG Anunoby. Anunoby provides elite defense, but having him as the highest paid player in Knicks history seems like a stretch, especially given his injury history and limited offensive upside. They also traded for Mikal Bridges, another two-way talent, but none of these players are top-tier superstars. That's the key problem. Do the Knicks have enough star power to challenge the true contenders? History isn't on New York's side. We've seen the Knicks assemble promising rosters before, only to fall short when it matters most. Their 2016-17 team with Carmelo Anthony, Derrick Rose, and Joakim Noah was supposed to be a contender but failed spectacularly. This current team could follow the same path. Good but not good enough to compete with the Celtics, Bucks, or any other truly elite team. While the Knicks have made bold moves, there's a risk they've raised expectations beyond what this roster can realistically achieve. Without a proven superstar, it's hard to see this version of the Knicks going deep into the playoffs or overcoming the East's top teams. The Cleveland Cavaliers might be another team that's overrated heading into the season. While they've finished 4th in the East 2 years in a row, their playoff performances have been disappointing to say the least. After losing in 5 games to the Knicks in the 2023 playoffs, they barely scraped by the Magic in 7 games in 2024. Only to get dismantled by the Celtics in 5. One key issue is their heavy reliance on Donovan Mitchell. When Mitchell is off his game or injured like he was in the series against Boston, the team falls apart. While Mitchell is a gifted scorer, his ISO-heavy play and inability to lead deep playoff runs are concerning. He's shown he can put up big numbers, but when the pressure's on, his impact seems to wane. At this point, he hasn't proven he can be the type of player to carry a team to real postseason success. Mitchell's arrival also created problems for Darius Garland. The young guard, once the focal point of the offense, has struggled to adjust to playing alongside Mitchell, showing signs of regression. Garland has yet to find his true role in an offense that's now dominated by Mitchell's ball handling, and that lack of cohesion is a major reason the team's offense stalls in critical moments. In the front court, Evan Mobley, who is expected to develop into a superstar, has sort of plateaued. After a promising rookie season, Mobley hasn't really made the leap many anticipated, and his fit alongside Jarrett Allen has raised questions. Some blame Mobley's stagnation on Mitchell's ball-dominant style, while others wonder if Mobley simply isn't the star the Cavaliers hoped for. Allen, while a solid presence on both sides, also isn't the kind of player who can elevate the team offensively in high-stakes playoff scenarios. Ultimately, despite their talent, Cleveland's core has yet to prove they can compete with the top teams when it matters most. Their reliance on Mitchell, Garland struggles to fit in, and Mobley's stalled development make it hard to see them as a serious threat. The Cavaliers might be good enough to hover near the top of the East in the regular season, but unless they find a way to solve these problems, their playoff ceiling seems extremely limited. The Miami Heat might also be overrated heading into the new season. After years of playoff overachieving, it feels like the core of Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero may have run its course. Their recent first-round exit to the Boston Celtics following a finals appearance in 2023 highlights that this team may no longer be built for deep playoff runs. Jimmy Butler has been at the heart of the Heat, especially in the playoffs where his playoff Jimmy persona led the team to improbable upsets. But at 35, it's clear Butler is slowing down, and his ability to single-handedly carry this team through the Eastern Conference gauntlet is diminishing. While Butler remains a star, relying on him to continuously elevate the team might be asking too much at this stage in his career. Tyler Hero, seen as the Heat's second option, has struggled with consistency and health. Though he's shown potential, winning 6th Man of the Year in 2022, his impact has been minimal in key moments, like this year's first-round loss. Hero's defensive liabilities and lack of versatility have started to overshadow his scoring ability, raising questions about his future as a core piece of any team. Then there's Bam Adebayo. While Bam's defensive prowess is elite, his offensive game hasn't quite evolved as expected. He remains a versatile big man, but his inability to create his own shot or carry the scoring load has become a glaring issue. Without a consistent offensive threat next to Butler, Miami's attack often stagnates, especially against stronger teams like Boston. The Heat's failure to land a superstar like Damian Lillard last offseason compounds their problems. They really needed that extra firepower to keep pace with the Eastern Conference's top teams. But without it, they're left with a core that seems to have plateaued. The Celtics, Bucks, and other contenders continue to add and improve, while the Heat are relying on an aging Butler, an inconsistent Hero, and a limited Adebayo. Miami has always thrived on toughness and defense, but in today's NBA, star power and offensive versatility are essential. With their current core, the Heat may still make the playoffs, but their days as true title contenders could be behind them unless major changes are made.
In the modern Eastern Conference, there's a subtle established hierarchy amongst a few top-tier teams, with one of those being the Philadelphia 76ers, but that upper echelon status that they are carrying into this season might not be so guaranteed. After a pretty bumpy start to the process in the mid-2010s, the Sixers have finally fully established themselves as one of the teams to beat in the regular season behind their star Joel Embiid. However, unlike some of the other top modern contenders in the East like the Celtics, Heat, or the Bucks, Embiid and the Sixers are yet to see any series past the second round. And with the high expectations that come alongside almost consistently reaching 50 wins in the regular season, the franchise has felt the need to shake up and add to this ever-changing roster once again. In 2019, it was Jimmy Butler. After Ben Simmons had his entire worldview shook after meeting Trae Young under the rim, it was James Harden time. Now going into the 2024-25 season, the front office has once again made another dramatic move to bolster this team around Embiid. And that move came in the form of Paul George, the perfect player to pair beside Embiid given his playoff performances as of late. At this point in PG's career, there is honestly little reason to believe that he's seriously going to be that X factor that takes the 76ers over the hump that they've been battling for around 6 years now. Just look at his time in LA with Kawhi. Although like Embiid, Kawhi is extremely injury prone, unlike Embiid, Kawhi actually shows up for his team in the playoffs. As the 76ers actually have a 5-2 record in the playoffs when Embiid isn't playing, suggesting he might actually be making them slightly worse. And just on the topic of Embiid, it's not like he's getting any younger. And given his injury history, that doesn't spell the greatest odds going forward. You don't need to do a real deep dive into the NBA's history to find other big men like Yao Ming and Bill Walton that had both their careers cut short due to injuries. I know fans keep expecting Embiid to finally put it all together and have a complete season, but going on 31 years old, the odds of that happening are getting slimmer and slimmer. And despite the crazy stats Embiid can put up during the regular season, the front office should be keeping that fact in the back of their heads when looking forward to how this team is going to look within the next 5 years. But right now we're talking about this upcoming season. And look, even if Embiid and Paul George both miraculously make it to the playoffs and finish each series healthy and without injury, eventually the franchise is going to run into a team that's just overall deeper. It's something that's been said many times on this channel, but the mass outpouring in overall talent across the league has had some pretty shaking consequences, leaving players like Lonnie Walker in the G League for some reason. Which, on a side note, does kind of point to the fact that this league is in dire need of an expansion. In Seattle, we're looking at you guys here. But back to the Sixers. Not that long ago, you could almost look at a playoff series and determine the winner by whichever one had the better out of the top 4 players on the court. But now the level at the top is really only taking franchises so far. And more, it's almost becoming a fact that your star players aren't the ones determining whether you make it to the finals or not. It's all about the depth of your bench. And for the Sixers, this is a lesson that they haven't been able to fully grasp. Aside from picking up Buddy Hield for half a season last year and a hopeful push at Caleb Martin this offseason, the franchise has done little to actually add to their bench, something that they will need to rely on whether they like it or not. So again, if we're giving the absolute benefit of the doubt and saying that both Embiid and PG stay healthy, with even Tyrese Maxey having a career year, it's still probably going to take more than that to make the 76ers serious contenders. Let's take a deeper look at the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that once again is being considered as one of the top contenders in the Eastern Conference. However, despite their status, there are valid reasons to question whether the Bucks are truly built for another deep playoff run. Sure, they won a championship in 2021, but in the years since, they've struggled to regain that magic. And a big reason for that has been their reoccurring issues with injuries, along with the steady decline of key players. Bucks' championship run in 2021 was nothing short of impressive, but it wasn't without its challenges. Giannis Antetokounmpo had missed 2 crucial games in the Eastern Conference Finals due to a knee injury. But back then, the Bucks had the depth and the supporting talent to survive without him. Both Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton stepped up in a major way, leading the Bucks to a Game 7 victory over the Atlanta Hawks and keeping their championship hopes alive. With Giannis back on the court, the franchise went on to capture their first title in 50 years. It was a pretty amazing run, but it's been a different story since then. In the 2 seasons that followed, Giannis once again found himself hampered by injuries during the playoffs. While his playoff performances have remained elite, those individual efforts weren't enough to save the Bucks from back-to-back early exits. So what's been going wrong for the Milwaukee Bucks? The most glaring issue is the team's age and durability. Chris Middleton, a key piece in their 2020 run, has been battling injuries for the past 2 seasons. Even when available, it's clear that he's just not the same player. His offense has dipped, meanwhile his defense has completely disappeared. That's a major problem for a team that relies on Middleton to pick up the slack when Giannis is out or limited. In many ways, Middleton's slow decline is one of the most concerning factors for the Bucks' future. At one point, he was their second star, the player who could be counted on to deliver in high-pressure moments. But his inconsistency due to injuries leaves a significant void for this roster. Enter Dame Lillard. The Bucks made a huge splash last year by trading for Dame, hoping to add some more depth to their offense and take some pressure off both Giannis and Chris Middleton. On paper, Dame's arrival should have helped mitigate Middleton's decline, especially in terms of scoring and playmaking, but it's important to remember that Dame, while still being an elite player, is not a direct replacement for Middleton. He's kinda supposed to be the replacement for Drew Holiday, and considering how much Dame lacks on the defensive end of the floor, that's already kind of a big hole. Then you kinda have to move on to the question of Dame's age and durability. At 33, Lillard is entering a stage of his career where many smaller guards begin to experience sudden and steep declines. And if this ends up happening to Dame, the Bucks could find themselves in a very tough spot. They already gave up significant assets to acquire him, and a regression in his performance could put a harsh spotlight on that trade, especially given Holiday's value on both ends of the floor and how much success he's seen since leaving that franchise. Another factor to consider is the overall roster construction. While the Bucks made some solid additions this season, such as signing Gary Trent Jr., the core of the team is still built around aging and injury-prone players. All of this kind of raises a question: have the Bucks already missed their window? The 2021 championship run was a culmination of everything going right at the perfect time. But since then, the Bucks have struggled to recreate that formula. Injuries, age, and the shifting landscape of the Eastern Conference have made their path to another title increasingly difficult. Obviously, a team like the Boston Celtics have only gotten better, and younger teams like the Orlando Magic are on the rise. The Bucks, on the other hand, feels like a team that's trying to hold on to something that they may have already let slip away. In the end, while the Bucks still have Giannis, one of the most dominant players in the league, they can no longer rely on him to carry them to a championship without a fully healthy and effective supporting roster. And with Chris and Dame both facing questions on their durability and decline, it's hard to say whether this roster is built to go to the distance. Now moving on to the lone Western Conference team on this list, the Denver Nuggets. Coming off their championship season behind the duo of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, it seemed like very few teams even had a chance of slowing this team down, as they looked to be in the early stages of a dynasty birth. However, after getting bounced in the second round by the Timberwolves in the most recent season, those dynasty hopes were pretty quickly dashed, leaving many fans and NBA analysts stunned. But realistically, people probably should have seen this coming. This is the first time we're talking about the Western Conference, but to anyone who's even a casual fan, they would be able to recognize that the West is much deeper. Even during the Nuggets championship year, you could see the pieces slowly coming together for a team like the Thunder and the Timberwolves, who were building their own visions while already having certified juggernauts like the Suns, Warriors, and Clippers to contend with. So first of all, to even think that just because the Nuggets look so dominant for one single season, that they would automatically become a dynasty is a bit crazy. But when you factor in everything else that was happening around them, the likelihood that they were a potential dynasty in the making was pretty slim to begin with. Then you have to look at what happened with the team's roster after they won that chip. One massive misstep was letting Bruce Brown go. Obviously, he was given a pretty hefty contract from the Pacers, a number that the franchise may not have wanted to give him, but given how crucial he was during the 2022-23 season, and especially in the playoffs, it would have been well worth it to suck it up and just pay that contract. Instead, the team was banking on Christian Braun's development coming earlier than expected when given a bigger role. But unfortunately, he couldn't quite fit that same role that Bruce filled. Aside from the loss of Bruce Brown, a part of their issue also lies with Jamal Murray. The two-man game that Jokic and Murray developed up until their championship season seemed to be one of the most elite in the entire league. But during last year's playoffs, that two-man game started to look really shaky. The defense was hounding the pair, and this led to Jamal taking a lot more contested shots than he was used to, which ultimately led to his effective field goal percentage dropping down 10% from last year's playoffs to the most recent. With all of the holes that are popping up in the Nuggets roster, it's going to be hard for them to catch that same flame that they did in 2023. Their upcoming season's hopes kind of rest pretty heavily on both Christian Braun and Peyton Watson's ability to step up and fill that role Bruce Brown played for the team, and for Jamal Murray to finally get back to his peak form. The teams on the list aren't necessarily doomed to an early playoff exit, but based on the rest of the talent across the league, the path for these franchises might not be as easy as some fans and even odds makers in Vegas have suggested. But if you disagree with any of these picks or have a team that you think might be overrated, feel free to let us know in the comments. Drop a sub and a like if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you back for the next upload.